Now that we have Audiograbber all set up, it's time to create an MP3 file. And to do that, just go to Grab, and this dialog will appear. Now, as you can see, it's ripping the audio from the CD, then it will normalize the audio, and then it will create an MP3 file. So we're going to go ahead and let that do that so you can see the process. The MP3 file is being created now. Now that we're creating high-quality MP3s, pretty soon we're going to build up a pretty large collection of MP3 files. Plus, you're going to be getting files from commercial download sites, and also maybe your friend might give you a CD full of MP3 files that you can add to your collection. Pretty soon we're going to run into an issue where the level of the audio in each individual file is going to be vastly different. Even though we normalized our files to 98% peak level before encoding them, that doesn't have anything to do with the average level, and the differences can be vast. Now, the end result is that if you put your player on shuffle mode, or if you create a CD of your MP3 files, you are going to have one file that sounds very quiet, followed by a file that's very loud, which is going to send you diving for the volume control. Well, there's a nifty little application that can help you to deal with this problem and do it in a way that doesn't degrade the quality of your MP3 files. A super solution to the problem of MP3 file volume is to use MP3Gain, which is a piece of software that actually analyzes MP3 files and tells you how loud they are and recommends how much they need to be turned up or turned down so that they will be consistent. Once you run MP3Gain on your MP3 collection, you will be able to play the files in shuffle mode, and they will be relatively the same loudness from song to song. Also, if you burn those files to a CD, the resulting CD will be pleasantly consistent volume-wise from song to song, and you won't have to dive for your volume control quite as much. Now, we have two files loaded into MP3Gain, and as you can see, it's telling us that one file has a value of 88 and the other file has a value of 96 dB as far as relative loudness is concerned. The target volume is the default of 89.0. You can change that, although I don't recommend doing it, because once you have an entire MP3 collection set to a target volume of 89.0 dB, if you change it and then you put MP3s in that you use MP3Gain on with a different volume, of course, now you're not going to be consistent. 89.0 is a good level to choose because it allows you to really get a good average between really loud MP3s and really quiet MP3s. So let's look at these MP3 files before they are processed, and when we're done, we'll look at them afterwards so you can see the difference. Here's Barry Manilow's This One's For You, which is the one that's the louder file, and then Goodnight Saigon, Billy Joel, which is an extremely dynamic file. Going back to MP3Gain here, you can see that they're loaded up. As a general rule, I do not allow MP3Gain to raise the volume of files that it finds are quieter than 89.0 dB. And the reason why is because all of my files have already been normalized to 98%. So I know that the peak value is as high as it can possibly be. If I would allow MP3Gain to raise the volume, it's going to create clipping in that file. So for this demonstration, we will just work on This One's For You, and we'll change the gain of that file. As you can see, you have several options here on your right-click menu. You can either look at your track analysis or album analysis. The album analysis is when you take all the MP3s from any individual CD or album and put them in there. Producers sometimes have songs on albums that are lower or higher than the other songs for a artistic effect, and MP3Gain allows you to treat those songs as a group and will preserve those original dynamics. But I ordinarily use track gain, and I don't usually listen to entire CDs worth of MP3s in one shot. You can work on that and play with that if you like. We're going to apply the track gain here to Barry Manilow's This One's For You. We're going to go ahead and do that, and as you can see, now we have volumes that are very close to one another across the two files. MP3Gain is an extremely simple program. Let's look at some of the options. One of the things that I do is I do not have it checked to see whether it's an MP3 file or not. And the reason why is because I know all my files are MP3 files, but you can sometimes have a little glitch in the header of a file, and MP3Gain will reject it even though you know it's an MP3 file, so that can be safely turned off. Also, I have MP3Gain add the subfolders, so when I drag in a folder it gets everything if you want it to go through your entire MP3 collection. And there are some advanced settings. I like to keep the priority somewhere around idle, which means that it will run in the background nicely while other applications are running. Once you have done your MP3 collection with MP3Gain, your levels will be consistent across all of your MP3s, and the beautiful part is that unlike if you load an MP3 into an audio editor, such as Adobe Audition here, and then resave it after changing the gain manually, you're not re-encoding the MP3, so therefore you don't lose the quality. Here's what the files look like after being processed with MP3Gain. You'll notice that Barry Manilow is now much lower in appearance on this waveform display because the original audio was extremely dense and needed to be turned down a bit. And the density comes from the fact that when this song was recorded, they used a great deal of audio compression and limiting to increase the density. However, when Billy Joel's Goodnight Saigon was recorded, they used very little compression and limiting, and even though you see peaks that go nearly to 100%, the average level is now closer to what it is after we processed the Barry Manilow file. If we had not processed these files, Barry Manilow would appear to be extremely loud, and then when we went into Goodnight Saigon, that file would appear to be much lower. We didn't allow MP3Gain to process the file. MP3Gain didn't need to. It said that the gain was already set to 88 point something or other, and so therefore it was very close to our 89.0 target volume. However, MP3Gain can sometimes find extremely dynamic files and want them to turn them up by 2 or 3 dB. If you have peaks in them that go nearly to 100% already, this will cause clipping when the MP3 is played back. So I analyze the files first, and then I set the gain with MP3Gain that way instead of allowing it to do the entire process automatically. Now, MP3Gain changes the gain of your files without actually changing anything that has to do with the original audio. If you would take an MP3 file and open it up in a program like Adobe Audition, which is what we're looking at now, and then resave that MP3 file as an MP3, what you're actually doing is re-encoding the MP3 and turning it into another MP3, which means that the audio is being run through the MP3 codec twice. And in that process, you're going to lose more information and the audio quality will degrade. MP3Gain changes the gain of your files by setting the replay gain bit on each frame of audio information within the file. Therefore, it can be reset back to 0, and then you have the original gain, or it can be played back at the lower gain that MP3Gain will inevitably find on most files, and you still have not modified the original audio information. Therefore, the quality stays the same. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it helps you to create a huge collection of very high quality MP3s. We talked about Audiograbber using the lame encoder, and we talked about MP3Gain to help you manage the gain of your MP3 files and make sure that the levels are consistent across your collection. This MP3Gain will allow you to make CDs where all of the levels are very consistent from one song to the next and very pleasant to listen to. Also, just wanted to say that I've used this software to create MP3 files that are now playing on radio stations all across the United States, and nobody ever knew that the original was an MP3. You're going to get some super high quality here, and I hope you'll download these programs, take some time and do some research and learn how to get the most out of them. I'm sure you'll be very pleased with the results. For Interface, I'm JC.